This conference will now be recorded.
Perfecto. Alrighty, so if I just go one slide back. Alrighty, so this is the last session that we're hosting, and it's an introduction to Pardot. I want to take you through all the basics, everything that you really need to know to have a good and strong foundation to actually get your head around the tool, what Pardot is about, and what is, I guess, the core focus and the reason why business actually start and go ahead with Pardot. The next slide, obviously, safe harbor slide. Please don't make any buying decisions based on what you see today in my presentation. This is not a sales pitch. This is just me sharing the valuable information and the things that I have learned in my journey, a little bit about myself and why I'm doing this. So I started my Salesforce journey back in 2013. It's been already 7 years, probably like everyone. I dived into my journey and started by implementing Sales Cloud and Service Cloud solutions. And for a couple of years, that was enough. But about 4 years ago, all the marketing tools, they became extremely popular when actually all the, I guess, marketing teams and marketing efforts really arise together with all the social media and how much actually we as a consumer started to consume social media, how we as a consumers get our hands on all the fancy devices that actually were compatible to download all these apps. And also, obviously, when business understood that 50% of the emails are open from the mobile phone, that was the reason why everything that we actually as a business started to do, we needed to also adopt and make it look really nice and easy to use also on the mobile devices. So that's where, from my perspective, we all understood, and also the requirements and requests came from the businesses, that all implementations moving forward just became multi-cloud solutions, because purely one CRM just wasn't enough. We needed to have this additional marketing platform. We needed to have these additional tools to support all the business needs, to continue to market, to share, to create, and to help prospects to convert, to buy, to market, and to educate about the brands, etc., etc. So without further ado, I still get questions about where this name is coming from. Obviously, Pardot, what does that mean? Pardot is actually a Latvian word, and it means to sell to market. And funny coincidence, I'm actually natively coming from that country. So, I mean, probably coincidence, or maybe that's why I'm so passionate about this tool. But Pardot means selling, hence actually I guess it's a tool that helps businesses to sell and to market their brands further to the customers. A little bit quickly about what we are expected to hear today. We will be talking about integration of Salesforce, key features of Pardot, how business can benefit from Pardot, different additions, common use cases, and mistakes to avoid. And I have also included some slides about reporting. Before we jump into all the kind of more advanced stuff, quickly about the terminology. So these are the key things you need to understand and get your head around when you're starting with Pardot. So first thing first, what is visitor? So in Pardot terminology, visitor is an anonymous user. A visitor is, for example, me. When I go to Google, when I type in how to update my iPhone software, I'm a visitor, I will get many results. And then whenever I click on the link, on the first link, third link that comes in a Google search, I click on that, I land on the website, maybe I scroll through the blog, and then if there are any newsletter form, or if you want to newsletter form advising me, if you want to stay up to date to all the updates when they're coming out, please capture this form. And if I go ahead and capture that form, that's a moment where I convert from a visitor to a prospect, because now business have captured my at least name and an email, and I'm no longer just a visitor who is browsing the website. I'm actually identified user, and individual. So prospect and visitor, these are the two terms you need to have a distinction with. And then obviously accounts, opportunities, and campaigns, these are the same terms that we come across in Salesforce, and these are also the same things what they mean in Pardot. And in Pardot, accounts and opportunities and campaigns, they're basically read-only, just to make sure you still can see all these related assets related to the prospects, and also you can use these accounts, opportunities, and campaign field values in your filtered list segmentations, engagement programs, etc., etc. And then qualification and assignments. So qualification, first, probably two new terms if you're new to marketing. So we have MQL, marketing qualified lead, and SQL, sales qualified lead. So these are the two terms that you as a business, I guess, need to understand what they specifically mean to you. If you have big volume of leads coming in into your business, if they're probably more than 50 in a week, and you have short and you are short on your sales team, you don't want to just push all your Pardot prospects into Salesforce. It doesn't make sense, because you would have too many unqualified leads automatically being pushed to sales. So all the salespeople, they will just be blindly calling, not really knowing who they are as a prospect and what they're really about. So in this case, it's really important to build that kind of stronger MQL, marketing qualification process that can be tailored around you creating some welcome journeys, nurture journeys, you, I guess, tracking this prospect for a while. And MQL can be as soon as they reach, let's say, 100 points, 100 score in Pardot, then you qualify them and make them sales ready. And this is where the qualification and assignments coming on board. So these are, I guess, terms for you to remember. Now let's talk about integration with Salesforce. So obviously, Pardot was purchased by Salesforce, I think around 6-7 years already now. So it's a very well established product. And in the last 2 years, they did actually quite a bit of a good, deeper integration with Salesforce. The one thing that I want to obviously bring across, because if you're obviously investigating what is Pardot, you probably will be reading and hearing what is Marketing Cloud. So these are the two marketing solutions that Salesforce owns and have. Marketing Cloud is obviously much more advanced. It's very for really large enterprises, for brands like Coca-Cola, for big e-commerce stores, Nike, Adidas, they would go ahead probably with Marketing Cloud. They would not waste their efforts on Pardot. Pardot is more, in my opinion, for small and medium enterprises. And also the difference with Pardot and Marketing Cloud, Pardot has only one-to-one integration with Salesforce. So only one Pardot account can be integrated with one Salesforce. With Marketing Cloud, you can actually integrate multiple Marketing Cloud accounts with Salesforce. So this is probably just to give you and sketch an example in your mind. If you are a brand like L'Oreal, they own Kiehl's, and they own also other brands of cosmetics that they own that are under the L'Oreal umbrella. So they would probably have marketing, they have various Marketing Cloud accounts under their L'Oreal account that feed all the information inside Salesforce. Pardot and Salesforce one-to-one relationship, and especially question would probably arise, what about training environment, sandbox environment in terms of Pardot? So Pardot doesn't have sandbox environment. Pardot indeed have training environment. So you can request your training environment through Pardot support. They will enable you. That's all official, and they support you learning, obviously. But in terms of if you have if whatever you build in your training environment, you will need to rebuild in your Pardot production. So Pardot doesn't have this change set functionality that we have in Salesforce sandbox environments and in productions. So if you want to test your solution, you would need to build it in your test environment. And just to also, you probably, because this is introduction and you'll be starting with training environment, unfortunately don't have any sending email capabilities. So if you even were going to build your engagement program inside a training environment and not a full kind of Pardot account, you actually won't be able to test that engagement program by actually sending out emails. That's unfortunately still not available. But safe harbor, I actually have read and heard they will be releasing proper Pardot training orgs available to wider audience like us developers, consultants to play around, maybe this summer, winter. Keep your eyes open, safe harbor. So let's talk about objects. Full edit create functionality we get with leads and contacts, and in Pardot, leads and contacts and person accounts mean prospects. So what we call in Salesforce leads, contacts, person accounts, they will be prospects, all prospects in Pardot. You can create them in both, and depending on how you set up your connector, so connector can be both way sync, connector potentially maybe can be one-way sync. I guess it's probably depending on your use case. Probably from my perspective, I mean, and 95% of the cases, customer always wants to have two-way sync connector, meaning if you update something in Salesforce, you will going to see that update in Pardot and vice versa. Then we have opportunities, accounts, campaigns, and activities. These are more in read-only mode. So you Pardot just want to make sure, obviously, you see still these relations and connections to opportunities and accounts, and you can create a lot of filtered functionalities. You can potentially, for example, in your form, you can have a completion action as soon as somebody submits this event form on a landing page, add them to this event campaign in Salesforce, so you can see all these people that are registering. And then obviously in a Salesforce, by adding and setting up a Salesforce layout correctly, you are able to see all prospect activities inside Salesforce. Old version is on the Visualforce page. Now with Pardot Lightning, you can add these Pardot Lightning components on your page layouts, and you can be very creative. And then for extra cost, if you have a business case, you can actually purchase custom object add-on. It comes with an extra cost. It's not very cheap, so obviously, but if you have that kind of request, if you have built custom objects inside your Salesforce and you need to bring them to be able to further filter your prospects, and I have had a case where a business is storing custom product customer information on the custom objects in Salesforce, and because they want to be able to have this dynamic list of all the customers that are current users of this product inside Salesforce, they want to see this dynamic real-time list inside Pardot, so they can automatically send them newsletters, product updates, pricing updates in real time, rather than extracting, importing, exporting. And especially nowadays, I mean, with all the GDPR, I always say it doesn't make sense, and you should not rely on importing, exporting data from Salesforce into Pardot, because I mean, we want to make sure all the GDPR and all the last opt-in things are actually captured. And on my blog, I actually have one blog post that briefly shares the GDPR solution that all businesses should actually have now. Whenever somebody actually submits the form, and for every form, I would highly, this is just actually a snippet. If you create any Pardot forms, make sure you actually have the opt-in checkbox on the bottom of the form, and you have automation in the backend that actually captures when that checkbox was last ticked, so you actually know. And I mean, if committee or somebody comes and checks your business, you actually track when was the last time they submitted the form, e.g. last time you actually captured the prospect's preferences for your business. Let's talk about Pardot connector. Obviously, when you will be first setting up Pardot, you need to kind of be fully aware if you are engaging and working with a customer who purchased Pardot back in 2019 before February 11, they will gonna have older version of a connector, but for all the new customers, they get a new version of a connector. And the benefit of the new version of the connector is that you no longer need to use a Salesforce license to actually connect Salesforce and Pardot, because historically with both Pardot Marketing Cloud, you actually need to have and buy additional dedicated license to connect these both orgs. This is no longer truth, so this is obviously a saver. And unfortunately for all the old customers that have still V1 connector, meaning they purchased before February 2019, there is no current solution how you can upgrade from V1 to V2. But Safe Harbor, they're actually working on this new package release that will help to convert your old instance to a newer version, so you can eliminate a need to actually have that additional license. So stay tuned for that. And if you are a person who is actually working on a Pardot roadmap, make sure you put it in and you keep track of it and keep track of all the releases. Then next thing that you need to know, Pardot actually is checking for every record updates every 2 minutes, and it syncs accordingly all these changes from Salesforce to Pardot or from Pardot to Salesforce. But I guess what you also need to know, that Pardot has a kind of queue functionality, meaning that they put all records in a queue and then they run this sync, and queue holds 200 records. So if you make an update to more than 200 records, don't be scared, there will be obviously a delay in a sync. So 2 minutes if you just update obviously one record, but if you do a bulk update for more than 200 records, it will take longer than 2 minutes. I have seen with orgs that have million plus records, it can even take half an hour. So don't get scared of these numbers. Just keep working on the thing that you are doing and come back later to check that sync, etc., etc. But if the sync is actually really much longer, Pardot themselves in their documentation they state, please then get in touch with us and we'll investigate potentially maybe if something is really wrong. Now I really want to talk about key features, and excuse me, I'll just grab one sip because my mouth is getting a little bit dry. Key features of Pardot. So first thing first, I think it's a tremendous benefit, visitor and prospect tracking. You probably know there are a lot of website tracking solutions, so like Hotjar, Hot Egg, I think it was called. So there are various, so there are 10, 20 plus of them. And probably my favorite is Hotjar. And if you are a business, or if you are a consultant that is kind of closely for a longer term actually working together with a business, I think Hotjar is actually a really cool solution that would help additionally enhance whatever you're tracking in Pardot. So obviously what Pardot does, Pardot, as soon as you convert from a visitor to a prospect, meaning unidentified user to identified user, by capturing the form, they start tracking you. Obviously, keep in mind, if you are capturing form in incognito mode, so this will be left behind. So everything that is done in incognito, and I know personally myself, when I actually shop something on like Amazon or like other like clothing stuff, I actually sometimes do specifically it in incognito, because I just like, I probably know too much and I have seen too many orgs and all these things, so I probably try to prevent, because obviously then they reuse all that tracked information for retargeting, etc., etc. But obviously as soon as you capture form on a browser, they start tracking you, and they will gonna see all your further activities with the website, all the pages that you have visited, all the further emails that you open when you open them, all the downloadable content, all the white papers, all the webinars, whatever activity you do and that business performs and executes from within Pardot, it will be tracked. So that's phenomenal for business. And then obviously just a additional add-on for the Hotjar, if you are a new business, if you are creating, or for example, if you're working with a customer who's maybe developing, creating new platform, new product, or if you are an existing business, and for every big business, if you really want to grow, you really need to learn and understand your customers. So tool like Hotjar, by basically injecting their tracking code additional in the footer of your website, you can start tracking actually where specifically people are clicking, which buttons they're clicking, which are areas of the page when they spend the most of time, where potentially they try clicking something and they really struggle to actually get to the point, or understand and find their way around of the website. So these type of visitor recording can actually help you really improve your website. And there are even further solutions where there are actually some communities and sites. I was listening to one podcast that, for example, you can pay like a fraction to a person, and those people are just basically volunteers. It's just basically extra gig that people are actually doing nowadays. You can pay somebody to give them literally a simple blind task. Please, can you go to my website and register for this webinar? And people would go and they would start looking to your website and would start to basically find their way around how to actually do that. And then you can see and track how long did it took them to find answer or do that task on your website, and if they actually really struggled. So these are the things, maybe again, if you're creating a new website as a business, or if you're working with businesses who are implementing Pardot and at the same time building the website, you can give them value by sharing that these are the options. So in the end of the day, the more value you're going to give, the better it will be for you as a consultant or for you as a business. So there are a lot of cool things around there. Then prospect scoring. So probably to add on whatever I was sharing previously, for every action that prospect does after they're cookied, they're also being scored. So score will gonna show you as a business or the business you're working with, how interested this prospect is in you as a business. So every time they submit the form, every time they visit the page, every time they click on tracked link, you can actually assign and create a specific score against that action. So then it would really help you to understand how interested that prospect is in you as a business. And if I remember a little bit in the beginning, we were talking about MQL and SQL. So this is where the MQL actually comes on board. So if for you is important to let person at least to collect 100 or 150 to 100 points before you push them to sales, SQL, because obviously maybe you have a big demand of new leads coming in every week, and you want to have push only like really hot leads to sales team. This is a moment where you will in Pardot be actually able to go and set these scores. And I guess this is where obviously you will be able to understand what will be that score threshold for you as a business. Then another thing previous, and then just to recap, score is how visitor is interested in you as a business. Grade is how I'm as a business interested in you as a prospect, meaning based on information that you provide to me, based on all the fields and values prospect enters in the form, and the key and probably most popular for businesses are obviously the identifying thing can be what is their title in a business, what is their job role, are they in the decision-making role or a role that you are interested because you know that role will convert the most opportunities. If you are a marketing agency, maybe you're going to focus on titles that is marketing manager, Google AdWords consultant, things like that. If you are a larger enterprise, maybe you're interested in president, CEO, CFO, COO, whatever is the titles. So based on the title, based on their country, region, or city, based on their country, region, what else can it be? Based on the company size, based on other various things they captured in your form, you can basically grade prospect and give them basically like a stamp. And this will be extremely valuable for, again, sales team. Whenever actually your prospect goes to SQL, they will be able to see, okay, I received now 10 new leads, 3 of them are with A score. Let them be the first ones who actually ring them up and try actually chase them up the most, because they are potentially the better and the biggest fit for me as a business. So I want to really make sure I put effort and share with them a lot of valuable information to convert. Now, the next key thing and one of the key features of Pardot is obviously engagement studio, engagement programs. And I mean, with these engagement programs, so we have a lot of good and valuable functionality inside there that can help you build all these programs that will be executing and doing a lot of things instead of you, on the behalf of you. So the most popular probably use cases, and we're going to go a little bit later on in the use cases, but it can be you creating a welcome journey, you creating a nurture journey, you creating a retention journey. So when you actually have a good data inside your Salesforce that is syncing to Pardot, when you have a date when the prospect was created, when you have pick list or multi-select pick list of all the products they're interested, of all the services they're interested, when you have last interaction date, or when you have last purchase date, when you have their country, when you have their job title. So this is where you can actually create all these dynamic lists inside Pardot, all these segmented lists, and based on the pool, based on the person, who they are, you can actually create really clever engagement programs that obviously in the beginning, you need to put your head around, you need to work yourself or with your team to actually, I guess, before you even build an engagement program, you really need to understand what is the end result, what is the end goal of your engagement program, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to educate your prospects? Hence, your engagement program will gonna have emails with interesting downloadable content, gated content, potentially some invitations to some local events, whatever are the means and the business you're at, or maybe that those can be emails that have a button, request a call with our salesperson, maybe submit this form to register for a visit to come into our agency, office, car dealership, like whatever business you're at. Or maybe even like, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just like I always have too many ideas. If you are running some trials, if you are developing a new product, oh, request or submit the form to be a new tester of our new product for free. We're getting now like 30 new customers or users on board, like whatever it can be. Like you can really, based on the data that you have in Salesforce, you can create these segments. Maybe you want to create segment of CEOs, you're going to create a dynamic list, and you're going to create a very specific targeted engagement program for these people. And then inside this engagement program, you have three key things. Obviously, you have actions. Actions will be send an email, add to the list, add to Salesforce campaign, update prospect's default field or custom field, adjust prospect score, assign person to a specific queue, a group, or a user. So these will be the actions that you can use. Then we have triggers, Pardot triggers. So what can be the trigger? A trigger can be email open, and this is what we see here in the program. So, and this is a very, very popular actually use case for the newsletter, because obviously every business is sending out newsletter weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. When they send out newsletter, from my perspective, it would be extremely large loss if you just create a list, you create email, and you send it out to the list, because you are not learning and seeing how many people actually opened your newsletter. And what if, and especially nowadays, there are even companies that have a ban on their mailbox. Literally, when somebody is on holiday, all the emails are soft bouncing automatically, so prospect will not even going to receive your email, because I mean, companies are now smart and they understand. Like I have seen, sometimes I go away for a couple of days, I come back and I have 248 emails. So like what is the reality I will be happy seeing and replying to all these emails when I actually need to go ahead with my job? So whenever you receive auto response with a sorry, your email automatically soft bounce, I returned from a holiday on the 4th of April, please send me email then again, because only then I will be available. I mean, I think it's very civilized action to do nowadays, knowing how many new emails we're receiving every day. So from my perspective, this what we see here on a page is a good example to actually send out newsletters. You send out newsletter once, then for the next 5 or 7 days, you actually track whether that email was open, and probably best practice for newsletter, you would want to send it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday, depending on your business. And then for 1 week, you're checking if they actually opened that newsletter. If not, you're using your second option and you're resending exactly the same email, because obviously they didn't open the first email, so why would you bother and create something new and invest time? You send exactly the same email the second time. And the funny and a positive statistic that I have seen, that from the 50% that did not open the first email, 25% will gonna open the second email. So literally, you potentially, if you don't use that second chance, you use 25% of prospects who could have opened your email again. And then, I mean, you can potentially, you set this up and you create this engagement program once, and you reuse it every month. You don't need to create every time again new engagement program. It doesn't make sense, because all the reporting and all the statistics will be tracked on your email templates. So you'll be just updating these email templates every month, and that's it. So engagement program, newsletters, onboarding journeys, welcome journeys, product update journeys, retention journeys, like their options are endless. So be creative, or ask me, I can help you. So my next really important functionality is forms and landing pages. So this is a very great image that actually illustrates how this, from kind of technical point of view, is actually built inside Pardot. So every landing page actually has 3 elements. Everything starts with a layout template. And what is layout template? if you, and the option is obviously you can select like a standard default plain layout template, and it will be basically all black and white. But as we all businesses, we have our logos, brand colors, design style, specific custom font, etc., etc. So these are all the kind of brand guidelines. These are all the things that you actually inject and create and put in HTML and CSS format in your layout template. This will be creating the design and style for your landing page. And you need to have, in this case, 2 layout templates, because you need to have 1 layout template for a landing page and 1 layout template for a form, because each of those elements will gonna have their own style and design, and the design that you put out for a landing page, let's call it shell, will be obviously more the borders, just a general look and feel, maybe some additional tabs on the top, some footer, some links, uh, 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 privacy, any links that you want to add still on your landing page to make sure it actually replicates and has look and feel of your website. And then forms. So forms can be very different. Maybe you even have layout templates for various types of forms. Maybe you have a quick contact us newsletter forms that are really small. Maybe you have a very big and large forms that have maybe some dependent pick lists, forms that are on a multiple page. So again, you would have a different layout template for that. And this is also the thing, if you're now learning about Pardot and understanding the Pardot. So these are the things that most of the times, unfortunately, are never included with these Pardot quick start implementations, because I know a lot of customers, they're kind of seeing, oh, quick start, it's quite cheap, let's say 1 week, and I can already start to use Pardot and I have everything I need. Unfortunately, and I mean, this is the truth and the reality, in this kind of quick starts, we're kind of enabling, creating all these syncs, automations, kind of really the basic business needs. But then when you're actually wanting to have these custom branded landing pages and the forms, this is a moment either you continue working with your consultant, with a consultancy, or maybe this is the moment when you engage creative agency to actually create and design these layout templates for you, because these are the things that you set up once. I mean, the next time potentially when you will be doing rebranding, obviously you will need to update these. But these you set up once, and then agency or consultant actually teaches you how to reuse them. And there's, I mean, no brainer. It's extremely simple. You just need to select that layout template every time you're creating landing page or a form for your event gated content, etc., etc., whatever is the purpose. And that's it. Every time you as a marketeer will be able to have really nice looking branded landing page. So this is I mean, great thing. You no longer need to have any third-party landing third-party tools to actually be able to create and capture these landing pages. And a very popular question that I get, what is the difference? Why should not I just create that additional custom page on my CMS or on my website directly? Why do I need to create landing page and a form in Pardot? So the simple answer is, I mean, there are probably 2 things that we need to think about. What is the longevity of this landing page? So if you are creating this landing page for a really, I mean, long time purpose, does then really it is a landing page? But from my perspective, I would always go towards the choosing the landing page from the Pardot, because your Pardot landing page, your Pardot form will be actually tracked. And as soon as somebody will be capturing it, it will actually start tracking your prospect and the visitor. So, but again, if you create maybe a form landing page inside your CMS, you would still use Pardot form functionality. So obviously by submitting it, it would be still tracking that prospect. So again, you probably need to architecturally and technically understand what is the purpose of the page you're creating, what is the longevity, and what are all the pros and cons, and then make a decision. Next, progressive profiling. So this complements whatever I was talking previously about the landing pages and the forms. Progressive profiling is a feature of Pardot forms. So every time somebody submits a form on your website, from my perspective, you would need to be asking and capturing new values, because does it really make sense to ask for a person, for a prospect, to capture again the same fields again and again? You need to be obviously careful if you are creating a form that will be used on a computers or for purposes where actually you see that multiple people can come and submit that form again and again. You would need to be mindful of disabling and not reusing this functionality. And probably a common use case would be either it's a trade show, either it's a reception, either it's maybe NHS, like obviously forms where people come and register one specific form, and they would not want to see previous person's information being populated automatically, because with what progressive profiling, what you can do, if and when prospect is cookied, you already know their cookies, you already know at least their name and email. So whenever they land on your website again and they want to again submit the same or a new form, you can automatically populate the data that you have already on them in your system, or you can disable that. So when you're building the form, there are these two things available. Either you populate or you choose not populate already existing values in your form. And then if name, email, company is already captured, the next time you can ask them new fields to submit. So that way, every time they would be submitting new form, you would be learning new information about that prospect and who they are. So obviously you would then be in a better position on creating better, more segmented dynamic lists, and you would you would be enriching your data, your database. And the more valuable and I guess niche data you have, the more precise and targeted and tailored messages and emails you can send, and obviously make a smarter calls. So this is a very cool feature that Pardot has and comes with every edition. Then, easy to create email templates. So what I really like about Pardot email templates and the building functionality, from the kind of building perspective point of view, all these things that you see here, they're very similar to your Google Drive, Google Docs functionality. So obviously this is all very intuitive actually to use. I really like to use this here, like two small arrows. So this will actually allows you to kind of expand and move that screen a little bit side to side. And usually when you're typing in test, it's better to kind of move that kind of sidebar to the left, so you actually have more space and you see more what you're creating there. Obviously, what you need to learn and see when you're going to open the tool, there are variable tags. So what are variable tags? You can automatically, all the fields that you have in Pardot on your prospect or account, on opportunity, or even custom object, variable tags allow you. Variable tag can be first name, last name, email. So for example, you can say, hi, first name, variable tag, and all the values that you're going to have against the prospects in the first name. Obviously you can create personalized message. It can be based on the interest, based on their country. You can type in, hey, I'm sure it's really nice weather in London now, and then obviously you would not put London for everyone because your user base can be based in all the different regions. But by having access to these variable tags, you can create really custom and dynamic message that will look very, very personal. And again, when you're creating these email templates, you can have two versions. You can create a basically plain text email template that would literally look like it would be sent out from your Google Gmail, sorry, or your Outlook, whatever you're using as a mailing tool, or you can create both. You can create HTML and text version, and if, for example, very large and secure corporations, they have usually like this firewall, and most of the times when they receive an email from you for the first time, they would probably see a text version, and whenever they select to actually enable you as a new recipient, only then that HTML pretty version would appear. So that's why you would need to set up here. You can see in the editor, you're basically setting up the HTML version of the email, and then here in a text version, you make sure there's a button, click from HTML. It would automatically sync all the text, and then you make sure you need to align that text to the left and basically scan it through and make sure it visually looks as you would expect the text to look, because most of the times, unfortunately, customers, they click on text, they click sync from HTML, and then they forget to configure and actually make that text nice looking. And then if you really don't further configure the text version, this what can result in your email actually going to spam, because all these servers, when they see your email, obviously they don't read, they're not that clever, but they scan through your text versions of the email, and if it looks very chaotic and disorganized, they're just gonna treat it as a spammy dummy email. So be sure you kind of really use all the tools. You can insert all the images. You can insert dynamic content. So dynamic content is actually an add-on. It doesn't come with the lowest edition, but you can purchase it as an add-on. And dynamic content will allow you to potentially create various sections of the email based on the data that you have against that content, that contact. So for example, if you want to create a dynamic content based on the specific region, country, location, or their title, so you can create, for example, a dynamic content for United States, EMEA, Asia Pacific, like whatever is the regions that you have, and then based on the area that is specified on the prospect, you can automatically populate that dynamic content for that prospect to see. Also, you can use dynamic content on your landing pages, again, based on the cookies. And probably question that can be in your mind, what about this prospect or visitor is not cookied? Like, what then are we gonna display? So then when you're creating dynamic content, there's always a fallback version, like a default version that is kind of global and universal. And then for all the tracked users, you're going to have additional versions that you can create that will be more tailored, more specific. Then dynamic lists, moving from a dynamic content to a dynamic lists. So these are all the, I guess, where the all magic happens most of the times, because obviously Pardot is a marketing tool. So you would be creating dynamic lists to send your dynamic specific tailored emails. You would be creating dynamic lists for your engagement programs to be able to basically segment your users and all the fields. So again, you can create dynamic lists. Show me all prospects that are in that newsletter list and have a title of CEO. Show me prospects that have captured this form and that have downloaded that gated content. I want to potentially re-nurture them. So based on everything and all the actions this prospect have done with your business, with your custom assets, with everything that you have created in Pardot, you can create a dynamic, specific, segmented lists and further nurture them. So very beneficial, a nice functionality of Pardot. Then let's talk about connectors. So obviously we talked in the beginning, Pardot by default integrates with Salesforce. And I mean, this is the Salesforce is the only official CRM connector that we get and we have, but then Pardot by default also integrates with all these other tools. So you can integrate and connect your Pardot with your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, with your Google Analytics and your Google Ads, with different webinar solutions like Eventbrite, WebEx. You can connect it with your support site like User Voice. You can connect it with your Vistia. And different chats like Olark, etc., etc. So make sure if you have all these other third-party tools that you use in your business, connect them with Pardot. So obviously, all the people that will be tracked inside your Pardot, and if you connect them with these other further platforms, these tracking information will be about this prospect automatically syncing inside Pardot. So then again, you can create more dynamic, more smarter lists to have and see how they're interacting and create further more filtered niche lists for you. And on the connector side, obviously, as a person who is helping businesses to implement these connectors and implement Pardot in general, I always take a responsibility about connecting and setting up Salesforce. So but again, at the same thing, I would either, if I'm working closely with their IT team, I would actually sit down with them together and guide them through how they should connect basically go inside, log in inside Pardot, and will allow them connect to Salesforce and to all these tools themselves, because I never want to take a responsibility, and I don't think it's a best practice to actually ask business, okay, I'm a consultant, I will now gonna now for me to be able to set up Pardot for you, give me all the details for all your social platforms, and then I'm gonna connect them, because then it's again a bummer. Most of the times all businesses will gonna have a two-step verification process, or they will gonna receive a code that you need to basically put it in, and again it will gonna go to them and you need to wait. So the best practice is actually sit down with business together and let them still have all the passwords and all the emails. Just guide them through how to set these things up. But if you're a consultant, don't ever take responsibility of actually asking all these login details, because nobody even should be sharing these through the emails. It's just a not secure thing to ask and to do. Now, let's talk about common use cases. Probably a common use case, continuing the connector topic. So for example, one of the use cases can be lead fills out the form on a Facebook campaign, lead gets pushed into Pardot and then further Sales Cloud when they're MQL, lead becomes scored, graded, and nurtured until it is sales ready. So scoring and grading and nurturing obviously will be happening from within Pardot. Sales rep gets a real-time notification that this is now a hot prospect that is ready for the sales team to call them up. And probably an additional information, Salesforce has a tool called Salesforce Engage that actually has that you can install your Salesforce Engage in your Salesforce and on your machine, on your desktop, and you will be literally getting real-time notifications and updates about what prospects are doing on your desktop. So this is additional product, Salesforce Engage, that you can investigate, and maybe it would be beneficial specifically to purchase a couple of licenses for your sales reps. And then prospect not yet ready to buy, after the sales rep actually calls the prospect, and then a representative can update, let's say, for example, them being as a record owner for that prospect to become of re-nurture queue inside Salesforce and Pardot once you set them up and connect, and then automatically prospect can again go in your nurture program that you create in Pardot after re-nurturing with personalized marketing content that will be sent to prospect over time. Rep actually then managed to close the deal in the following quarter, and then support teams obviously will keep the customer happy. They will keep track on their maybe product renewal dates, on their new requests, or will keep sending them newsletters to update what is happening in the business. So this can be like a small nice example that you can potentially reuse for your business, just to also get your head around all the complexities and functionalities that you can build for you and your business. And then Obviously, how business can benefit from Pardot. So by now, you're probably hearing all the basics and all the potential features and functionalities. You can probably already start being creative, what you can actually build and have within Pardot. But the biggest thing, where I want to raise your awareness about is Pardot really helps to break that bridge in between marketing and a sales team, because obviously whatever marketing team is creating all these maybe events, landing pages, nurture programs, and maybe send some, I don't know, toys, wines, flowers through the mail, sales team most of the times they're actually not aware. So by having Pardot, by having all these scores, grades, by cooking prospect, by seeing all the prospect activities, not only in Pardot, but also having that lightning component inside of your Salesforce, this is where actually marketing team and sales team can start seeing all the efforts and all the transparency, what has been done with that prospect before, what is that thing that marketing has actually already shared with the prospect, which are the downloadable assets, which are the forms, which are the pages, because you can create page actions for every page on your website, and you'll be able to see which are the pages that the prospect has actually seen before. So then you as the salesperson can have a full transparency, what they already know, what are the potential gaps I can fill in to close this deal. So probably breaking the gap in between and the bridge in between these two teams are key. And then further, obviously, what is extremely beneficial is now, because for marketers, I mean, historically, it has been always really, really hard to have and give any clear numbers to all the CMOs, to all the CEOs to actually prove the expense. Why do we need to pay, I don't know, 10, 20,000 for Pardot? What is the benefit? What is the ROI? It's too expensive, right? So now when you actually can attribute all of these things, and in Pardot, you can literally, I'm going to be showing in the reports, you can literally record and track all the journey from visitor to being prospect, from being MQL, and how much all these marketing efforts, how they actually result in ROI. And this is probably the first kind of example. So by tracking all these things and interactions on even campaigns specifically, you can see by setting up this campaign, and this campaign can be for you event, this campaign for you can be maybe
it's 13 hours.
This campaign can be for you maybe Google Ads, Google Analytics, like whatever it is. So you can literally see how many clicks, how many form submissions, how many page views this campaign is generating. So this is, again, this is bringing full transparency to the business. And what I was talking previously about, so now by having all these tracked touch points that start with potentially somewhere in your somewhere from the Google Ads, somewhere from your Facebook form, somewhere from maybe your ad on your, I mean, maybe promotional banner on a news site or on the other site where you buy these placements. So you can track from the point when somebody actually clicks on that specific ad. Obviously, you're going to use your UTM parameters that you also can record in Pardot. You would then see from visitors, let's say in my example, I have maybe business had 55,000 visitors on their website coming from all of these different channels and sources. Then only 2.5 from these 55 converted. Then 1.5 became MQL, meaning they reached specific score and they were sales ready. They were marketing ready. Then only 127 in the last 30 days became sales ready. And then only 42 deals were one last month. So basically in Pardot, you have these built-in reports, and if you set up all your tracking and cooking correctly, you'll really be seeing what are the stats and the numbers. And here you have also in Pardot velocity report. And what is velocity report? It will be basically telling you how long does it take you from a visitor to convert a person to a prospect. How long does it take you from a prospect to become MQL? How long does it take from MQL to become SQL? And etc., etc., etc. So Pardot will obviously you as a marketeer will give these out of the box reports that you can present back to the business to really see how everything that you are doing resulting into something. And then in the other reports, you can also drill into each campaign one by one. So you can see these downloadable assets convert and result into so many closed deals. These events that we are hosting and organizing for our customers result in so many upsell opportunities or new opportunities. And in the end of the day, why we are purchasing all these tools, obviously to be able to market and to sell more, because I mean, if the business is not profitable, it doesn't make sense to have a business. So that's why I guess Quick Start, I mean, is a great way how you as a business to enable all the core functionality, but nothing ends with a Quick Start. You as a marketeer or you as a business, you need to keep evolving, strategizing, and creating all these, I guess, journeys and important metrics for you to track as a business, so you can actually see what are the best ways how to attract new customers, what are the best ways to give value. And especially now, a lot of businesses probably, and that's a kind of real talk, specifically specific to this situation that we have now in the world, that is coronavirus. I have been immersing myself in listening to a lot of business leaders and CEOs around the world, and the best tactic and approach that we can have now to actually continue I guess being there as a brand is actually giving value, giving a lot of free value to all our existing customers to make sure they actually keep staying with us. And for example, I was listening yesterday to a podcast, like all of the, I mean, for example, gyms, all of the PTs, obviously they're probably stressed out because they're using all their customers. Nobody can actually now go to the gym or to whatever business you are having. So a lot of gyms, they're actually now, you need to be okay with that mentality that you'll start losing. And by doing actions like you actually going and maybe buying, let's say, a dumbbell for all your subscribers, for all the people that actually have a membership, and sending them to your home with a postcard that you're keen for them to continue their fitness journey, and you'll be hosting online trainings for your customers with the same gym membership or whatever is the agreement, to keep them happy, to keep them fit, so then they actually stay forever long customer for you. I mean, you need to be nowadays very, very, I guess, creative, and potentially losing is a way during these couple of months that we have now to actually then come out stronger out of this, to come out with more and more loyal customers that will be spreading all these phenomenal, I guess, free marketing for you. Because if you're going to make a person happy, they will want to talk about you with their family, with their friends, on their social platforms. So you don't then even need to, I mean, potentially invest in creating all of these, I mean, adverts and paid ads, because your people, your customers, your clients, they will be creating the most organic, the most beautiful, natural, I mean, the most natural, I guess, adverts and market for you as a business. So be creative. I hope I was able to be insightful today for you and introduce you to Pardot as a tool, and implementation with examples is the way to go, because I think examples and realistic world scenarios help us to learn. Thank you for joining the call. I'm really grateful to have you all here. I hope I was a value for you in this Saturday and you heard and learned something new, and have great the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.